Getting now to that big trade
Yeah.
that we alluded to. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Winnipeg Jets traded Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Pierre-Luc Dubois and a third-round pick. So, Lepore, what are your initial thoughts on this trade?
It's a big one, man. It's funny how quickly things change. Like we think back only a few years ago, he's a young player, on how much Laine meant to the Winnipeg Jets. And as Leafs fans, we all remember that Matthews Laine rookie year where the Leafs blew that lead in Winnipeg and Laine scored a hat trick. And you think as a Jets fan, as the Jets fans must have been thinking wow, we got this guy, the whole Finnish thing, Teemu Selanne, blah, 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 blah. And now a few years later, he's gone. And I don't know if that's a reflection of Patrik Laine. I don't know if that's a reflection of the Winnipeg Jets, or I don't know if that's a reflection of today's National Hockey League player in the way that we can't have these types of emotional connections like we used to, because we're not going to see guys spend their entire careers with one organization, especially the big stars. And then you throw in the cap. But I don't know, do you think Jets fans, if you're a Jets fan today, is there a part of you, I mean, they got a good player back, but is there a part of you that thinks there should have been an emotional connection to Laine and sad that he's gone? Or are you just okay seeing him go?
I see why a lot of Jets fans are upset. And it's like you said, it's that emotional connection, right? He goes second overall. He comes in as, one of the most hyped prospects that team has essentially ever had, right?
Yeah.
He comes in first season, lights it up. First two seasons, he had one 40-goal season and I believe a 35 or 34-goal season.
And he got hurt that first year too. He missed games. Yeah.
And looks like this dude is just going to score 40 goals a year in his sleep. So I could see why Jets fans are upset, because his play tapered off a little bit. He's been good, but he hasn't been that dominant, 40-goal scorer year in and year out. So,
yeah,
I would be a little bit upset as a Jets fan because I thought he was going to have, a long career in Winnipeg, and I thought he was going to be one of the best goal scorers in the league for a long time. But saying all that, I really like this trade for the Jets, Lepore.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And it all comes to who they have down the middle now, because you pair up Mark Scheifele with Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, they're immediately now one of the best center duos in the NHL. Yeah. I don't want to say, they're a top 5 center duo, but I think they're somewhere in that, 5 to 8 range. And if you have two studs like that down the middle, to upgrade from Paul Stastny as your number 2 center to Pierre-Luc Dubois, when you already have really good top 6 wingers in Blake Wheeler, Kyle Connor, who's been incredible this season.
Incredible player.
Nikolai Ehlers. Yeah. So I think when you just look at the way that the Jets are constructed, and I've said this, many times about this team, I still think their defense core needs a lot of work. But when you look at that forward group and the way it's constructed now, I'm really liking how that looks moving forward.
Yeah, I think where I have them with Dubois now is that on any given night, they kind of were like this before, but you'll know what I mean by this. They're good enough to beat anybody. Like you said, when you have Scheifele and PLD, you are good enough to beat anyone. And you mentioned Connor, he kind of had the reputation last year of being maybe the most underrated player in the league. He's not underrated anymore. People are fully aware, man, this guy is scoring for fun right now. You commonly hear the threat of someone's always dangerous. It seems like he's always dangerous. And man, very, very, very good player. But in terms of the Jets now, again, so you think we agree they got better, getting stronger down the middle, but do you see their playoff potential any better, or do you see higher expectations, fair playoff expectations for the organization now?
Coming into the season, I thought that the Jets would be a borderline playoff team in the North Division. And I still, for the most part, even though they're off to a pretty solid start this year, I still think they're kind of a borderline team. And again, I think it just comes down to their defense core and their team defense in general. And I know Hellebuck's incredible, but I really think that's the weakness of their team. And listen, I think they're kind of in the same boat as Edmonton and Vancouver. Right now, it looks like the Leafs and the Habs are the 2 best teams in the division. And I know it's only been 7 games. And I think everyone else is going to be just sort of jockeying for position over the next little while.
There's going to be a muck bag of everything else.
So I don't really think it, and you know what? It's like I said, I think it makes them a better team. And yeah, maybe that does give them a better chance to make a playoff run, especially having those two centers. I mean, again, just look at any team that's won the cup over the last decade and, you know, the two centermen that they've had on their rosters, whether you look at, you know, Washington with Backstrom and Kuznetsov, Crosby and Malkin, right? I mean, I know the Bruins, you know, haven't won a cup, but they've been a very successful team over the last, you know, 8 to 10 years. Well, they won a cup, I believe it was like 2011, but Bergeron and Krejci, right? So, so you need
2011 Krejci.
Yeah, exactly. So you need two dudes down the middle. So I do think it makes them a better team. And then when I look at Columbus, like, I know there's this narrative going around that Laine and Tortorella aren't going to get along and it's going to be difficult for him. And I can see that. And I think it might be a little bit of a tough transition for him, just based on the way he plays. He's more of like a perimeter player. He doesn't really fit the mold of, you know, someone you think would thrive under Tortorella. But listen, we saw Panarin light it up with Tortorella. Laine's a great goal scorer. He's going to produce. They're going to be fine. That system that he runs in Columbus, they always figure it out. It doesn't matter who's in the lineup. So I think they're going to be fine. But yeah, I love this move for the Jets.
Yeah. I forget what journalist it was. And again, like I'm not here to judge any player's personality because we're all just guessing because we don't know them. But I forget which journalist it was in Toronto where it was Laine's first game against the Leafs in Toronto. And of course, like, he gets attacked after practice. The journalists are all over him, asking him questions. And it was pretty well known that he was visibly rattled. And the reaction was, thank God the Leafs didn't end up with number 2, because he wouldn't have been able to handle it. Like, the guy pointed out, it would have been a complete and utter disaster had this guy ended up at number 2. And again, like, that's fair. Like, some guys just don't like the limelight. They don't like to be asked a million questions. They don't want to be that guy. And if you want to be away from that spectacle and just score your 40 goals in a lot of markets, that's okay. But in Toronto, I don't think he would have been able to avoid that. So I think we should count our blessings and be thankful that we dodged a bullet with that one. It could have got ugly in a hurry from what I've seen journalists report online.
Oh man, the night the Leafs won that draft lottery in 2016. Oh my gosh. That was one of the greatest nights in franchise history. I will never forget.
Hopefully we can look back at that and like add it to a chapter to the book of something one day. But yeah, no, that was awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.